Greetings. How you doing? Welcome. Good to see some folks already here. Hopefully y'all can hear me. Hopefully the audio is good. Let me know if that's... Sorry for the late start. It is frigid here. Well, frigid by Southern California standards. My phone says the current temperature is 51 degrees, and that's looking like that's going to be the high today. Maybe we'll get to 52. Yeah, it's been really cold here all of a sudden again for Southern California standards, but we basically didn't get out of the 40s yesterday, so that's, I'd say that's fairly wintry. I got a hot cup of Joe to try and stay warm out here in the garage. I'm loud and clear. Thank you, Ring-tailed Fox. Hello everyone. Michael Reich I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Zoxalix, hello. Daniel V, hello. Noel from Dublin. Greetings. 4C, yeah. That's chilly. 31 degrees in Minnesota, -3. Veronica, you are in France? Is that right? Or have I got that right? 27 in Colorado. Yeah. Winter is upon us. 37 in New York. All right. Everybody's checking in with their temps. That's awesome. So yeah, man. Everyone, come on in. Welcome. Like the video so that we can get more viewers in. Daniel V saying hello from Detroit. Hello, Detroit. Hamtramck, Michigan. That's basically, Hamtramck. Yeah, just outside of Detroit, right? You are just east of Detroit. Am I wrong? Right? Wrong? Oh, inside Detroit. Okay. Florida saying hello. Windsor, 36 degrees. Yeah, man. Yeah, so anyways, yeah, so just trying to kind of make it through the morning. On top of all of that, my phone is about to die, and I've got notes on my phone, so that's not really good. So yeah, let's just get into some things. Happy Buy Nothing Day today, right? Otherwise known as Black Friday, but some people refer to it as Happy Buy Nothing Day. I like to raise awareness around the fact that, today's a good day to not engage in consumerism. Get out of there. So 10C, and somebody said 10C in Munich was too warm. I guess it would be, right? What is that? It's about 50 degrees. So 50 degrees is fairly warm, right? For Germany at this time of year. You guys are about as warm as Southern California. So yeah, I'd say that's probably... Lightning Rod, you are 13th or 13th first. Greetings. Is 42 too warm for Thunder Bay, I wonder? Lightning Rod. United Nations report this week was scary. Are we talking about the climate tipping point report? I think this was... Maybe not. Maybe this is not the same report. I'm sorry that I don't have that at the ready. It's also No Gas Friday. Yes, happy Gas Strike Friday. That's exactly right. What's up, CB? 8C in Vienna. Is that normal? So yeah, let's Emissions by China in the U.S. Is that Daniel V. United Nations report? Emissions by China in the U.S. keep going up. Yes. It's actually, there are so many, it seems like there's a new UN report out every couple of weeks or every month, or, you know, it's overwhelming. The news about what's happening is overwhelming because there's a new study, there's a new article, there's a new Arctic blog post, there's a new UN report, there's a new IPCC report, there's a new, you know, take your pick. Ring-tailed fox says spring was too wet to plant, then we had a very dry summer, and now autumn's been too wet to harvest. What little did make it. Yeah, looking at some problems with crops this year for sure. Human says the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people is a UN organized observance November 29th. Let's also observe that as well. Definitely. Solidarity with the Palestinian people. What is happening there is genocide, apartheid. Israel is officially a fascist state. Oh, and that's a headline I forgot to add to my list. But let's start off with that. Netanyahu was indicted this week for corruption charges, bribery, etc. I'm going to go through some more headlines. Desmond Tutu calls for an anti-apartheid style boycott of the fossil fuel industry. I don't know if anybody saw that. The boycotts in South Africa during the apartheid era were quite effective in taking down the system that they had, and leading to basically a revolution in government. So Desmond Tutu, who was part of that movement, understands the power of the boycott. So he's calling for a massive boycott of the fossil fuel industry. And I couldn't agree more. We're going to need an organized, you know, there's some people calling for, you know, carbon taxes or divestment from fossil fuels or et cetera. We're going to need all of the above, all hands on deck. Man, you guys are just dropping news. I can't even keep up. Let's go with some headlines from the comment section. Noel Wilson says there was a public lecture on facing up to climate change here last week. 12-year window is BS. Lady said carbon budget is almost certainly gone in 2 more years, or already gone. Let's see. Daniel V says, I'm moving to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's very remote. Yeah. I believe there's some people, viewers of this channel, that are already there. Yeah, it's remote for sure. So moving on to more headlines. Stratospheric warming watch for early December. Did anybody see that article? There's a possibility for temps 30 C above normal in the Arctic, above the Arctic in the stratosphere. And I have the article up. I'll probably go through that in just a moment. This isn't necessarily a headline, but I just was watching a Tom Hartman video talking about death rates going up in red states that contracted Medicaid or Medicare coverage. You know, the ACA allowed people, you know, supposedly allowed people more access to health care, but it was supposed to depend on states expanding Medicare coverage or Medicaid coverage. And some states took it upon themselves to actually reduce Medicaid or Medicare coverage because because they're such nice, lovely Republican people, and they really care about others. So, access to healthcare and social services is direct impact on people's lives. So let us please, you know where I'm going with this, support the candidates in the 2020 race who are pushing for Medicare for all. And there's actually only one, and that's Bernie Sanders. All the other ones are pushing for some kind of version of Medicare for all, but leaves the private insurance industries in place and able to use their corporate money and power to, basically overturn or dilute or erode Medicare for all, if they even get it passed. Bernie's the one that's pushing for the real deal. He wrote the damn bill. So anyways, what I've seen a lot this week also is that there's a growing consensus, and I talked about this the other day. There's a growing consensus among scientists. There's also an Arctic News blog that we're officially over 1.5 C, or at 1.5. And this is, a lot of people think we're over that we're probably closer to 2, and we're probably closer to 2 in some regions. So, if we're trying to stay below 2, or if 1.C was or is or was at any time the target that we were supposed to stay below. And the reason why we're supposed to stay below that target is because once we reach a certain global temperature, then the feedbacks start really kicking in, and it's very, very difficult to stop an exponential rise in temperatures. It was kind of older, a little, this happened in October. In October, Australia closed Sacred Rock Uluru to climbers and walkers. I don't know if anybody heard about this, but I think this is actually really cool. This should be happening all over the place. We should be there. They closed it off to climbers, walkers, hikers, whatever, because it's a sacred site. But I think that we should start designating, nature itself as a sacred site. We should start designating more places as off limits to climbers, walkers, hikers, etc. Sorry, that's just my own view. I know some people disagree with me on that, but I'm just going to have to say, if we're going to rewild, if we're going to let the earth, let nature do its thing and rebalance itself, we're going to have to take ourselves off the scene. And I don't know, I think anybody can see the damage that's done when you have more intrusion by humans on any habitat, on any area. I can see it firsthand. I love hiking. I love going out in nature, but I can see, what happens whenever I go hiking anywhere. It's actually, any of the places along the trails or anywhere close to the trails, it's destroyed. There's vandalism. There's, just junk, beer bottles, plastic. There's, graffiti on trees. I just went hiking the other day, and there's graffiti all over this tree, which is also from Australia. New South Wales public servants at a climate conference were told not to link bushfires to climate change. Getting into some political news, and this is, U.S. political news. Mike Bloomberg officially entered the presidential race by engaging in the highest ad buy ever in history of $32 million. So this billionaire thinks he's going to buy his way to the presidency. I mean, I guess it's happened before, but he doesn't have a lot of public support. And this is an unfortunate thing to say, but Trump, for whatever reason, has more public support among his side of the political spectrum. people just generally don't like Mike Bloomberg, and he was once a Republican. Now he's a Democrat. I think we went over this. Hillary Clinton threatened to enter the race. On top of that, Barack Obama this week threatened to say something or get involved if Bernie Sanders looked like he was running away with the nomination. So straight up, this should be realized by everybody. The Democratic elites, the Democratic establishment would rather have Trump be the president than Bernie Sanders be the president, than Bernie Sanders be the nominee for the Democratic Party. They would rather let Trump win, or they'd rather throw up somebody who's so horrible and terrible. And if Trump wins, the elites don't really care because he doesn't affect their bottom line. He doesn't affect their way of life. He doesn't really hurt them on any level. He hurts the common person. He hurts you and I. So that was it. That's my little headline section. Rather short for the week. Obviously, it was holiday this week and lots of other things going on. There's lots that I missed, of course. I think actually there was. Hold on one second. One more headline from Nick Humphrey's page. Zimbabwe struggling to feed itself as natural disasters wreak havoc. So Zimbabwe, so many places actually getting bombarded by extreme weather events, climate events, Zimbabwe being one. We've covered that. We've talked about the back-to-back floods and storms that Zimbabwe has been facing. So I'm going to go back through some of these comments. Glad you guys are all here. Good to see you. Buy Nothing Day is an international day of protest against consumerism. Exactly. I support it. Veronica Harris says, Radio 4 BBC talking about sea level rise before 2030. Yeah, well, sea level rise is happening right now. Venice, Italy. Miami, Florida. Louisiana. Marshall Islands, Alaska. Lightning Rod asks if there's any news on ice in the Chukchi. Wade in says, read that 2,900 people died in Florida alone because of reduced Medicaid decision or expansion. Yes. It's disgusting that, in reaction to, whatever feeble attempts Democrats took with the ACA to try to expand medical coverage that, right-leaning states took it upon themselves to reduce, try and thwart people getting coverage. I don't understand that. On a human level, I don't understand that. No, sorry, you can't get this medical care. We don't want to give it to you. We want you to be sick. We want you to die. I don't know. COP in Madrid starts today. Does it? I don't know. Oh, December 1st. So that would be, is that Sunday? Proudhon says, please consider writing to Julian Assange. Details of how to do this can be found at writejulian.com. Veronica Harris says, I'm planting trees in the next few weeks. The destruction that causes where I live is appalling. I'm sorry. I know some people will say why, but I say why not. Sorry, I was reading two different comments. Hello, Karen Daly. How you doing? Welcome. Greetings. Please like the video. We can get more viewers on if you do that. The Arctic, Human says the Arctic is warming at least twice as quickly as the global average. Absolutely. The northern latitudes are warming at a much faster rate than the southern latitudes, making, as per the article I covered the other day, as far as like where to go when climate catastrophe hits, it's a really tough decision. You kind of just have to trust your instincts and do your best, because the more we know about what's going to take place, or how the earth is going to be transformed, it doesn't really leave you with many places to go. It doesn't leave people with too many options. S. Shiva says this live stream is a pleasant surprise. Greetings. Yeah, yesterday was a holiday, so I decided to do the live stream today. And I'm trying to figure out like a good time to do it, because 1 p.m. is not necessarily good anymore. Brian Smith says ACA saved my mother-in-law's life. I'm boycotting Black Friday. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I mean, I think the ACA helped people in general. It's a bit of a sticky subject, though, because I think the problem with the ACA is it forced people to buy insurance. People that couldn't afford to buy insurance, forced them to buy insurance. And the idea behind this was that would keep, if you had more people in the pool or buying into the insurance, that it would keep the cost low. But some people can't even afford the premiums, not to mention the co-pays. I'm kind of actually in that place right now myself. Like I'm buying dental insurance and I have health insurance, but I can't really afford the co-pays to go to the dentist or go to the doctor, and I don't really have the time. It's very difficult to get the time. So and I'm not really getting great coverage. So I would prefer Medicare for all. That's just my preference. I would rather pay a little more in taxes and just get free healthcare at the point of service. Ringtailed Fox says, I can't afford anything. Does that mean I'm boycotting Black Friday too? Yeah, definitely. You're already in the club. CB Unglesby says new ozone hole over Norway is going to accelerate warming. Prudhomme says Paul Beckwith is going to reduce his carbon footprint by flying to the COP25 at Madrid. Yeah. I don't know. I don't understand why we're even doing this. This seems ridiculous and frustrating beyond belief that these scientists are still like, hey, everybody, let's get together and get on airplanes and go. You guys can't have a teleconference COP25, or you guys can't do these climate conferences remotely. Or you can't, encourage all the scientists to take alternative, maybe you can have a regional conference where, anybody that's close enough can take public transit or a train, and maybe let the people on other continents teleconference in. I don't know. Prudhomme says 60 doctors warned this week that Assange is likely to die in prison, and I'm sure there was a lot of people that wouldn't be unhappy with that. A lot of swamp monsters who wouldn't be unhappy with that. Noel Wilson says nobody is saying stop all flights, but a lot of the jetting around is really non-essential stuff. Vacations and multiple vacations, and also, not to mention, people flying private jets where there's a few bodies on the plane and they're sucking up a lot of fuel. I don't know. I'm for shutting down flying altogether. Because you start kind of trying to argue the point of what's essential and what's not essential. well, I really need to make this business meeting. Well, I really need to make this scientific conference. Well, I really need to, you know, you're telling people going to work is essential, or, you know, politicians got to go over here, or I don't know, you know, it's hard to really, how would we have maybe an 80% reduction in air travel and be fair about who deserves to get on what plane? I don't know. As I read the other day in that article, if we were going to reach net zero by 2025, or even if we were trying to reach it by 2030, you'd have to stop all commercial air travel, period. The end. Immediately. If you're even going to try and reach some kind of goal like that. Maybe there's something in the middle. Maybe there's a way to greatly reduce air travel over the next 10 years. I don't know. I don't know what that would be. I don't know what scheme that would be. Is this the official uniform of the resistance? I don't know. The olive jacket. Yeah. It's cold here, or coldish. I'm outside doing this video outside, so it's chilly. Brian Smith says, I have Medicare. I still have copays for a lot of stuff. Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, like my dad has Medicare and he has copays, but they're really, you know, they're small, and his prescriptions are fairly cheap for what he's getting. Yeah, we need it. We need Medicare for all. Michael, right? Is it Reich or Reich? Good luck convincing the DoD to ground military aircraft. Well, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's just a really tough one. You know, air travel is a tough subject, but, you know, if we're really serious about it, if we're really talking about, you know, where do you know, commercial air travel is about making money. So, if you took the profit motive out of air travel, if you said, you know, commercial air travel is no longer going to be happening, I mean, I'd say that's a good start, but then, you know, that leaves maybe military air travel or official, you know, political air travel, or I don't know. Levi James asks, what are people's thoughts on marine cloud brightening? I don't know. Personally, I think that we should really talk about, you know, regreening, rewilding, tree planting, sustainable agriculture as a way to draw down CO2 and keep temperatures down. I don't know. I'm really not a fan of messing with what's in the sky. Although I don't know what's involved with marine cloud brightening. Does anybody know the exact? I don't think, you know, I think the tech fixes are last resorts, but what tech fixes are least damaging to the environment would be a good question. I can't think of many right now. So yeah, let's get into. I want to go through a couple of articles or news items. This wasn't it. So there was a newer Arctic News blog post from November 24th. The breach of the Paris Agreement. This is by Andrew Glickson. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just kind of go through it a little bit. And we were talking about reaching 1.5 or passing 1.5C just earlier in this video. Since its inception, the Paris Agreement has been in question due to, among other things, its broad definition specifically holding the increase in the global average temperature to well below 2°C, above pre-industrial levels, and pursuing efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5°C above pre-industrial levels. Its non-binding nature, accounting tricks by vested interests. The goal assumes predetermined limits can be placed on greenhouse gas levels and temperatures beyond which they would not continue to rise. Unfortunately, these targets do not appear to take account of the amplifying positive feedback effects from land and oceans under the high cumulative greenhouse gas levels and their warming effects. Thus, unfortunately, the current high CO2 levels of about 408 parts per million, we have reached 415, and the near 500 parts per million CO2 equivalent, that's CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide, would likely continue to push temperatures upwards. Significant climate science evidence appears to be have been left out of the equation. For real. The Accord hinges on the need to reduce emissions, which is essential, but it does not indicate how further temperature rise can be avoided under the conditions of a high CO2 atmosphere, which triggers carbon release unless massive efforts at sequestration, drawdown of greenhouse gases, are undertaken. Inherent in global warming are amplifying positive feedbacks, including albedo reflection decline due to the melting of the ice and the opening of dark water surfaces, increased water vapor contents of the atmosphere in tropical regions, which enhances the greenhouse effect. Reduced sequestration of CO2 by the warming oceans, desiccation of vegetation, fires, release of methane from permafrost and other processes. This means that even abrupt reductions in emissions may not be sufficient to stem global warming unless accompanied by sequestration of greenhouse gases from the atmosphere to a lower level, recommended as below 350 parts per million CO2 by James Hansen, the leading climate scientist. The question that was posed, that was asked, was how do we do this? Or what are the fixes that we could do to get carbon levels lower in the atmosphere? So, kind of in line with this, I wanted to read a comment from Joseph Seeley. He's left a few really good comments, and I haven't had a chance to read his comments lately, but this, he proposes, and this is kind of in line with Walter Jane and others who are talking about ways to use agriculture, regreening, etc., for the drawing down of CO2 and the cooling of land temperatures. So Joseph Seeley says, we can do it by going vegan and properly using the resulting land that is freed up, producing food from nature, mimicking systems like food forests, grow food, not lawns, reforesting, rewilding the 5 billion hectares currently used in agriculture. We can sequester enough carbon on that land to be carbon negative without any emissions reductions within a couple years, and continue for at least 20 years at deeply carbon negative. I don't know about the exact science of this. I'm just reading his comment. I don't know if anybody has any supporting science to back this up. It is enough that we could be back to 300 parts per million CO2. This would give us a chance to draw down emissions, avoid the aerosol unmasking effect, and address all the other environmental concerns like habitat loss, groundwater, aquifer depletion, erosion, desertification, etc. Sustainable selective harvesting of wood for building materials, fibers, and fuel can still occur. It extends the size of the sink when done properly. Pyrolysis of waste materials and pollards can turn 30% of the carbon in the material into biochar, which can then last for centuries or even millennia in the soil. The resulting wood gas can be used for cooking, offsetting fossil fuel use. Durable goods made from wood can last several decades, in some cases centuries, in which time the forest can have fully recovered, been selectively harvested again, and onto third or fourth round. In the case of biochar, it can result in extending the sink up to 50 times or more. We have near unlimited ability to sequester carbon this way. So as long as we slow down emissions enough that we can deal with only sequestering at a 30% rate. Pollards can regrow every year, sometimes twice a year, and at proper density mean keeping complete canopy cover. Timing the cutting of pollards with flowering and fruiting of other trees allows for increased overall output by opening up sunlight for them as needed. Planting trees at super high density and thinning over time. Making sure understory trees are well established before cutting overstory trees can keep the canopy complete and ensure a consistent supply of wood. Canopy cover and the light it captures is effectively the upper level of CO2 absorbed. As long as we keep the canopy complete, we are maximizing CO2 drawdown on the land. What are your guys, what is the thoughts on this? What are the thoughts on this? Sorry, I can't speak English at the moment. Y'all have any thoughts on rewilding, regreening, sustainable agriculture as a means to draw down CO2 and to keep temperatures down? I don't know. I'm highly interested in this. If this is our best and most natural hope, this is probably the way that we're going to have to go if we have any chance whatsoever. Proudhon says having less kids is not going to have an impact for many years. Probably not, but it's a good start. I mean, I'm all for plateauing the destruction. We're going in the wrong direction. So, like, if we could even plateau the population, that would be great. If we could plateau emissions, I mean, that's just, that's not enough, but it's at least it's better than continuing the escalation of the destruction. S. Shiva says the government could give tax write-offs for citizens purchasing and maintaining personal greenhouses. Yes, indeed. They could encourage all of these kinds of activities. They could, they could fund these activities. They could, instead of, underwriting fossil fuel use or fossil fuel companies, subsidizing them, they could subsidize anybody who's doing regreening work. Or local farming, or permaculture, or sustainable farming. Ring-tailed fox says human exclusion zones like the Korean DMZ and Chernobyl, are verdant gardens of Eden for a reason, few to no people, and that is my point in the rewilding, regreening efforts, which I think that is our best shot at keeping down CO2. I mean, we really need to have exclusion zones. We need to have off limits, these places where people like to, climb or hike, or, these mountains, these glaciers. I know it's all lovely, and, people love to commune with nature in that way. There's lots of places for humans to commune with nature, but there should be lots of places where humans cannot go and cannot commune with nature. Leave it alone and let it be pristine, if you will. Marcia W. says if they allowed the elderly a gentle way out and people stop having kids, it could impact quickly. It depends on how extreme do we want to go with these measures. What if there was a no babies for 10 years idea? How quickly would the population reduce just with that? Veronica says, while I rewild, the farmer up the hill throws chemicals on his land. Yep. Well, we have to find a really creative way, and we have to find all ways in which to stop this from happening. Violet Crumble says we've been civilized to death. So you watched that video with Jimmy Dore, yeah? I watched it too yesterday. I thought it was really good. And very interesting points, yes. You know, I don't know that we could go back to hunter-gathering right now as a species. I don't think it's possible. Although I'm not against it, and I'm not against anybody who wants to try and do it. But I think we need to go, kind of step back on some level. Marcia W. said, I've had seeing a glacier on my bucket list for a long time, no more. Yeah, I don't, that's the thing is there's a lot of things on my bucket list. There's a lot of things I've always wanted to do. I always thought was going to be really cool. Places I wanted to visit. I'm like, what's more important is to not add to the destruction for me. There's a lot of places I'd like to go. There's a lot of places I don't need to go. You know what? I saw Soylent Green so long ago. I barely remember what happened, and I need to watch it again. I also watched a lot of movies when I was drinking heavily, and I don't remember anything that happened. So I have to rewatch all these movies and reread a lot of books that I read when I was drunk. Anyways. So let's move on to, you know what, guys? Hold on one second. Emergency actions needed right now. Sorry about that. I'm back. So my computer went from 30% down to 4% in 2 minutes. I don't know what happened there, but anyways, I thought I had enough to finish this video and I did not. So let me get to have a couple, probably 20 more minutes left. Pardon the break. So I want to cover this Desmond Tutu article. Desmond Tutu calls for anti-apartheid style boycott of the fossil fuel industry. This is from April 2014. I'm sorry, this is really old news. Damn it, check the dates, sir. But this is relevant. This is funny though, because he called for this in 2014. And what year is it? Has anything happened? Have emissions just gone up? I'm not going to read this article now. Pardon me. Even I sometimes don't read the date on articles. It's really... Yeah, no, it wasn't a P thing. It was a charge the computer thing. All right. I'm going to get into this article from Truthout. Climate tipping points could hit harder and sooner than we think. This is from yesterday, November 28th. 2019, citing an existential threat to civilization, a group of top climate scientists have put out a new paper warning that the latest evidence related to climate tipping points when natural systems reach their breaking point and cascading feedback loops accelerate collapse could mean such dynamics are more likely than was thought, and could come sooner as well. In the paper published as a commentary in the journal Nature on Wednesday, The group of researchers summarized the latest findings related to the threat of tipping points as part of an effort to identify knowledge gaps and suggest ways to fill them. We explore the effects of such large-scale changes, the scientists explain, how quickly they might unfold and whether we still have any control over them. While the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change introduced the idea of tipping points 2 decades ago, the paper notes, it was long believed that what climatologists refer to as large-scale discontinuities. Whoa, what happened there? My dog just freaked out. Discontinuities. That's the word I was trying to say. In the planet's natural system were considered likely only if global warming exceeded 5°C above pre-industrial levels. According to the researchers, however, more recent information and data include the most recent IPCC summaries suggesting these frightening tipping points could be exceeded even between 1 and 2°C of warming. Yes, and we have known that. That means this century, possibly within just decades. Or how about this decade? I don't think people realize how little time we have left. Owen Gaffney, a global sustainability analyst at the Stockholm Resilience Center at Stockholm University and co-author of the paper, told National Geographic, we'll reach 1.5°C in 1 or 2 decades. Sir, Owen Gaffney, we're at 1.5°C. And with 3 decades to decarbonize, it's clearly an emergency situation. Gaffney added, without emergency action, our children are likely to inherit a dangerously destabilized planet. How about we are going to inherit a dangerously destabilized planet? We're inheriting that right now. According to the paper, if current national pledges to reduce greenhouse gas emissions are implemented, and that's a big if, they are likely to result in at least 3°C of global warming. This is despite the goal of the 2015 Paris Agreement to limit warming to well below 2°C. Some economists assuming that climate tipping points are of very low probability, even if they would be catastrophic, have suggested that 3°C warming is optimal for a cost-benefit perspective. What? However, if tipping points are looking more likely, then the optimal policy recommendation of the simple cost-benefit climate economy Model 4 aligns with those of the recent IPCC Report 2. In other words, warming must be limited to 1.5°C. This requires an emergency response. So that's all I'm going to read of that article. I will link it below. And I'm going to link the Arctic News article, although I'm sure a lot of people have seen that. So there's some ridiculous statements in that article. However, if we are at 1.5°C, an emergency response to 1.5°C, what's going on? What if anything is happening? And somebody asked me the other day in the comment section, like, what is happening? There are some things happening. I think people are trying to make, people are making attempts at changing what's going on. It's not like there's nothing at all happening. We're just not lowering emissions on any level. Emissions are going up. So are we doing anything as far as lowering emissions? We're not doing a good job of that. But are people seeking alternative energy sources? Are people seeking to grow food in a different way? Are people seeking to live in a different way? Are people trying to clean plastic out of the oceans? Are people studying this problem and trying to come up with solutions? Are people proposing sustainable agriculture solutions? Are people proposing regreening, rewilding? Yes, they are doing that. People are doing things in the face of this. Is it enough to make a difference? That's the question. Those things need to be greatly scaled up. The damaging activities, the destructive activities that industrial civilization is engaged in, those things need to be reduced greatly. But the ridiculousness of 3°C being okay for in a cost-benefit analysis is just so ridiculous. At 3C, we are most likely extinct, and we are halfway there. So where does that leave us? What do you think we should be doing? Rudy Zavedno says we're at 1.7C. Is it Rudy or Rudel? We're at 1.7C if you eliminate aerosol pollution with the 2-3C already baked into the system. Yeah. I think a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that we are at 1.5C. We're not 1C. We're somewhere between 1.5 and 2. Hunger strike in UK continues today. Yes. There are people still on hunger strike. So it's, I don't know what day we're into. Is it day 10? Yes, 3C equals collapse of civilization at least, at very least. If not outright widespread extinction or widespread death of mammals, including us. Uh, 3C converted to Fahrenheit is 35 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. Is that right? No. 37 degrees Fahrenheit? I don't know if that's right. Somebody check that for me. Oh, 3C equals 4.5 Fahrenheit? Is that right? Oh, I'm missing something in my equation. Sorry. Yeah, totally wrong. Five Fahrenheit. Okay. Thanks, Prudhomme. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Richard, for the check on that. Day 11, Brian Smith says day 11 for those on the hunger strike. Okay, we have yeah, it's not, yeah. All right. Well, then I'm going to cover one more article that I covered, that I talked about in the headlines before I sign off. Let's see. So okay, so I was right. So 3C, the actual temperature 3C is 37 Fahrenheit. So I was correct on that. But I think the change, what they're trying to say, I don't know if we're differing here, but the change of 3C would be, so an added 3C to the global temperature would be an added 5 something. Is that right? Okay. Henry Holt, good morning. And covering this article from out of Australia, New South Wales public servants at climate conference told not to discuss link with bushfires. This is from November 12th, 2019. As bushfire conditions were declared catastrophic on Tuesday, New South Wales bureaucrats attending a conference on adaptation to climate change were directed not to discuss the link between climate change and bushfires. Sound familiar? Bureaucrats from the New South Wales Department of Planning, Industry and Environment were sent an email soon after the ADAPT NSW 2019 forum began. It's an interesting name for the forum, causing consternation among some attendees who saw it as tantamount to gagging them. The email said, for those attending ADAPT NSW today, Public Affairs has issued advice not to discuss the link between climate change and bushfires. Refer questions in session and plenaries to bushfire reps. The former NSW Fire Commissioner Greg Mullins was one of the attendees. But the participants also included scientists and experts who are developing policy and advising the Berejiklian government on adaptation measures the state could take in relation to land use, planning, and dealing with the risk of bushfires. Gagging climate change experts from speaking in the middle of a bushfire disaster is a new low from this government, the Greens MP David Shoebridge said when told of the email by Guardian Australia. Right now, we need to be hearing more from experts and, to be quite frank, maybe a little less from politicians. Anybody have a ding? We know there is a link between the climate emergency and these catastrophic fires, and the public debate needs the assistance of impartial government experts. This is a vacuum that will otherwise be filled with political shouting and increasing public anger. According to publicity for the event, ADAPT NSW Forum is a one-day event which brings together climate change researchers and practitioners, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so I don't need to read any more of that. We got the gist of it. Again, ongoing silencing. Dear Lord, we cannot tie climate change to extreme weather events or extreme disaster events. As, you know, the fascist state continues to rear its ugly head, we must make sure that industrial civilization and disaster capitalism continue above all else. Mr. Poole, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate you. Sultan Bev says, you're planting 1,000 trees tomorrow. Good on you. Thank you, guys. Keep on liking the video. Got about 5 minutes left in this. Okay, I think we're getting... apparently, Ethiopia has been planting loads of trees this year from Rotterdam. Thank you. Yeah. Tree planting is going on. Actually, well, maybe I'll cover it this weekend. There was a good article about the tree planting in China being not so effective, but it's a step in the right direction. And I think we're going to, we're not going to have perfect rollout of, we're not going to have a perfect rollout of countermeasures to climate change. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do the wrong thing. So the idea is to have that, take the action, and try and, minimize the harm of the action. I don't think we should just do any and everything. And we don't want to do things that are going to end up taking us in the wrong direction. But I think taking steps in the right direction, planting trees, regreening, rewilding, sustainable agriculture, all of these things should go forward, as best that they can. And we're going to learn by our mistakes. At least we're not making the mistakes of, this is opposed to making the mistakes of maybe techno fixes, right? Whereas if we roll out tech fixes, the effects of those, the negative impacts of those might actually be something that we don't want to bring on. Human says, shout out to Mother Earth, Father Sky. Violet Crumble says, I support Tree Sisters, women planting trees. Awesome. Oh, Just Have a Think reported it's a coalition of African nations planting trees. Excellent. Nancy Bruning says, don't let perfection be the enemy of good. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, like, you know, we get really, you know, it's really important that we look at the best possible practices in whatever it is we're going to do in the face of climate change. I think everybody agrees that using natural methods and, you know, things that are in balance with nature, using those methods to, you know, suck carbon out of the atmosphere or to keep temperatures down, those are the ones that we should take. I think tech fixes are last resorts. Those are not the ones that we should be encouraging right out of the gate, because I think the blowback from those kinds of actions are going to be much greater. But, you know, we're going to have to do things and start doing them quickly. And, you know, they're not all going to be perfect, but I think that we understand that certain things are better than others. Henry Holt says gardening is good for the health too. Exactly. I'm actually going to be doing more gardening this year. I got invited to be an associate gardener at a community garden around the corner. So I'm not only going to be gardening at home in my backyard, but also at this garden. So hopefully I can be producing a lot of food and hopefully sucking up some CO2. Noel Wilson says the water cycle is not even entirely understood yet. Yeah. But we're going to do our best to understand it. Human says dozens arrested for demanding food justice at Jane Fonda's Fire Drill Friday protest in D.C. That's awesome. She was recently arrested, right? I didn't know she was doing these Fire Drill Friday protests. That's beautiful. I'm going to send some of my friends in D.C. over there if they're not already aware of it. Plant an apple tree in your backyard. I actually have an apple tree in my backyard that I just planted 2 years ago. It's not producing apples yet, but it's getting there. It's getting big. I also have an avocado tree. I'm going to plant another avocado tree. So hopefully I'll have lots of avocados. Anthony Davis says topsoil is bad in Dallas. I mean, it really has no nutrients. Well, compost. Compost can help bring up the quality of the soil. There you go. Mulch it. Salt and Bev. Mulch it. Anthony Davis says Hambo knows how to garden. He says it's not rocket science. Yeah, it takes work. It isn't rocket science. It takes some work, and it takes attention, and it takes some time. Violet Crumble says we waste energy at an appalling rate. Just think of Las Vegas at night. I prefer not to think about Las Vegas as much as possible, but yeah, totally. March W says I have apple trees at night. It's Grand Central Station. Trail Cam provides incredible insight to the neighborhood. Meester Pool says look up hemp for victory. Veronica Harris says plant hemp, save the world. S. Shiva says today is a good day to save the biosphere. Awesome, guys. Thank you for joining in. I think we're nearing the end of this stream. We've done about an hour. You guys watched me walk off set for a few minutes. Apologize for that. Just needed some charge for my computer. Environmental Coffee House says Doug put in an apple tree in August, built a wooden fence around it, so it's deer proofed. Yeah, I have a problem with the critters getting my stuff, so I'm gonna have to probably put up some kind of something. Ecocentric Homestead says that's the thing. Gardening takes physical and brain power. Most people would rather use both in useless activities. Well, get out there, plant a garden, plant some trees, guys. I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for being here. You're awesome as always. Next week, I think we're going to go back to Thursday live stream. Actually, next week, I think I'm going to have something special going on. I'm not going to announce it yet, but because we haven't really completely confirmed that it's happening. So if all else fails, we're going to have live stream next week. Probably, I'm going to shoot for 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, whatever that means to you. We got up to about 93 viewers today, so thank you all for joining in. I really appreciate you. Yeah. See you on the next video, and see you next week. Peace.